Chapter 11. The Silver Assessment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Nyo-iwo Studio Editor. Nyo-iwo Studio. Thinking back to the longbow in her hands, he thought it might be the latter, and with such high privilege, she must be either rich or powerful. The celestial being's hair was wet, as if she had just gotten out of the shower. Her fragrance spread in bursts and her fair complexion was like a lotus after the rain, glowing and smooth. Go on in, no one is there now. The celestial being waved her hand slightly, a hint of smile in her clear eyes, as she invited Suyu in. Suyu was surprised. This is the upper-class training room, and I am just a silver student with no right to enter, but I appreciate your kind offer. It's all right, I'll allow it. The celestial being smiled and walked away. Suyu was not a pompous man, so he said his thanks and swiftly entered. In the middle of the training room was a small green pond with white fumes pouring out from it, like an emerald gem. The fragrance of the celestial being lingered in the air. Suyu got ready to take off his shirt and enter the pond. Suddenly, a gust of strong wind came from behind, so fast that Suyu could not react. He felt his eyes blur, and it seemed like someone had taken something from the side of the pond. At a crucial moment, Suyu activated his double eyesight and entered a sped-up time zone so that he could see everything clearly. It was the celestial being. Her face was flushed and there was a hint of shyness in her eyes. She was biting her lips slightly as she rushed in and grabbed her skirt that had been left beside the pond. It was none other than the skirt that she had just taken off but forgot to pack away. Her entrance and exit happened in a flash, and normal people would have no way of seeing it, instead just perceiving it as a gust of wind. Suyu's expression was uncomfortable as he closed the stone door like nothing had happened. After taking off his shirt and entering the pond, Fang Yu was still in shock. The celestial being is so powerful. Her speed of light is far higher than a level that I can match. Besides having a privileged identity, is her level also very high? With doubts in mind, Suyu entered training. Suyu submerged his whole body inside the green pond and an indescribable sense of comfort entered every inch of his muscle. He could almost feel his body slowly improving. No wonder this is the upper-class training room. The effect is fascinating. Suyu exclaimed to himself softly. He immediately took out his spirit elixir, coordinated it with the spirit pond, and started to train intensely. The silver student's assessment was only 3 days away. He had to hurry and upgrade his powers in order to get a higher placing. After 1 day, the secret chamber remained silent. After 2 days, there were occasional punching sounds in the chamber. After 3 days, a breeze was blowing about the chamber, as if there was a shadow floating around, with sounds of moving sleeves. Wow! The effect is amazing in the upper-class training room. Suyu was satisfied as he felt his blood surging through his body. Under the coordination of 3 lower-class spirit elixir, 1 middle-class spirit elixir and the spirit pond, he had reached the peak of level 2. He was only an inch away from level 3. At the same time, the universal stroke had reached level 3 top tier, and his fists could continuously hit 16 times. 16 consecutive hits can be blocked by only a few people. Once the 3rd level is completed, his fists would be able to hit consecutively with no limit. Then who can block it? The cloud shadow trick also had great improvements with the completion of level 1. Suyu could easily jump over 3 meters, his body light like a swan and graceful like a swallow. His agility and speed could be compared to a level 3 member. Brother Feng, tomorrow is the silver assessment, I wish to enter an upper-class training room. A couple approached the training room. The female possessed the beauty of Fox Fairy. Standing beside a handsome man, the Fox Fairy spoke slightly flirtatiously. Qin Feng was satisfied with the fairy's dependence but was slightly embarrassed. The martial arts training institute was extraordinary, but even he did not have the rights to own an upper-class training institute. Qin.er, let's wait. The lights are on in this upper-class secret chamber, which means the person inside will leave once he finishes training, and then I will ask him. How about that? Qin Feng tidied his attire, believing that as the junior duke, he could convince the other party. Jiang Xueqing was happy, as she felt that as long as Qin Feng was around, anything was possible. Thinking back to her year with Su Yu, she shook her head lightly. If only she had met Qin Feng earlier and had his financial and power support, she might be a golden student now. My past self was so ignorant, Jiang Xueqing sighed to herself. Creak. The door opened, and a young man surrounded by water vapor stepped out. Qin Feng smiled lightly and extended his hand politely. Sir, I am Qin Feng, and my father is the Duke. I was wondering if you would let us borrow your secret chamber. Su Yu had just come out, and turned around upon hearing the noise. His face showed his wonderment. Oh, sorry, this is a friend's. I don't have the right to lend it, Su Yu replied as he closed the stone door and walked past them. He nodded his chin slightly towards Jiang Xueqing and walked away expressionlessly. From start to finish, he did not look her in the eyes. Even as he glanced at her, he showed no sign of recognition, as though she were a stranger. The couple was stunned. Qin Feng recovered from the shock and was both surprised and angry. He was surprised that a poor kid could enter an upper-class training room that even he could not enter, and angry that he had made a request to this poor kid. Meanwhile, Jiang Xueqing was also shocked. Since when did Su Yu have the right to enter the upper-class training room? Ha! Qin.er, no need to worry, his good days won't last long. Tomorrow is the silver assessment and I am going to show him something. Qin Feng said with a tinge of viciousness. The mention of the silver assessment caused Jiang Xueqing to gather her attention. With the support of Qin Feng, she had managed to break through level 3, and had hope of fighting for the top position with Silver King Chen Tiannan. A few months from now she could even enter the ranks of the gold students and be the best of the best. As for Su Yu, with his average skills, he could break through level 2 with some luck. Even so, at most he would return home and become a senior martial arts trainer or a hunter, living a mediocre life. Compared to her, who was destined to be the top lady, they were worlds apart. Su Yu, it is not me being harsh, but you are too useless and cannot provide me with what I want. Jiang Xueqing collected her thoughts coolly, and made up her mind that the path she had chosen could not be wrong. Su Yu returned to his room, and Wu Song immediately followed him like a pug. He realized he could no longer clearly see Su Yu's details. Brother Yu, you are back. These are the challenge books you have received in the last 8 days. Wu Song said with respect as he retrieved a stack of 5 challenge books. Su Yu had suddenly risen up and defeated Qin Feng, entering the top 100 rank of silver students. Naturally, many silver students were not satisfied and wanted to challenge him. Su Yu did not care about them, except for one letter that made him raise his eyebrows. It was a challenge book written in blood. There were just a few sentences on it. On the day of the silver assessment, come on stage and face death. From the Silver King, Chen Tiannan. Chen Tiannan. Su Yu's expression was cold. Chen Tiannan, the best of the silver students, the Silver King, the elder brother of Qin Feng, a person who had to be avenged. Su Yu had hurt Qin Feng, it was within reason for Chen Tiannan to seek revenge. Wu Song watched Su Yu's expression carefully as his reminded him, Brother Yu, do you want to apply for a leave of absence from the martial arts school to avoid the Silver King? No need. Su Yu wrote his reply in ink on the challenge book. Silver King, tomorrow, protect your title. Wu Song gasped. How daring of Su Yu to be so arrogant. The next morning marked an uneasy day for the countless silver students. The silver assessment would eliminate half of the silver students that did not meet the requirements, with 5,000 people being sent home. This would mean that their martial arts journey would end and they would be marked as a commoner, either being a good hunter in a remote village or being a small instructor, leading a mediocre life. Su Yu arrived at the assessment venue early and sat quietly in the audience seats. Not many people knew him, and nobody cared about him. Look! The second and third silver powers are here. Excitement and respect could be seen in the eyes of countless silver students. 2 silver students, one male and one female, gathered in front of thousands of eyes, like shining stars that were eagerly watched. Su Yu had seen the third silver power, Su Sen, before. 8 days ago, during his fight with gold student Li Mingho, he was knocked to the ground. His childhood sweetheart Li Qian threw away their love and abandoned Su Sen, becoming a toy for Li Mingho so that she could have a better future. Having experienced the hardships of life, Su Sen did not seem to be in the best condition, with an air of uneasiness. Beside him was the second silver power, Xian Lifei, who was on level 3. She had a sweet face and was all smiles, but there was a hint of slyness in her smiley eyes. Although only 14 years old, she was charming. Xian Lifei has high hopes of achieving the title of Silver King. At last year's silver assessment, she lost to Chen Tiannan by 1 move. Apparently she has been training hard this past year, even breaking through to level 3. The chances do not seem great. Chen Tiannan's specialty is the ghost shadow trick, which is mysterious and unpredictable, making him extremely powerful. Unless anyone can match up to this trick, it would be scarce to find a true opponent. The entrance of the 2 people brought about a round of cheers. After the grounds went quiet for a while, there was a sudden commotion. Look! One of the top 3 beauties, Jiang Xueqing, has appeared. And the junior Duke Qin Feng by her side. The crowd was going wild. Su Yu looked over and saw the god-like couple walking out. Chapter 12. The Silver King. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio. I'm so jealous of Jiang Xueqing. If only I had the love of the junior duke, I would be able to get the training resources. That's right. Look at Jiang Xueqing. 2 months ago she was a level 2 lower tier, now she is a level 3 lower tier. Moreover, she has the middle tier martial arts tricks from the junior duke. She is undoubtedly a dark horse in the fight for the Silver King title, discussed 2 jealous girls. The 2 of you are dreaming. You need to have the looks, a male student at the side jeered at them. Ha! We are not bad looking, it's just that Jiang Xueqing is too beautiful, the girl was unsatisfied. The male student smirked to himself and looked towards Jiang Xueqing, unable to conceal his love, but he said regretfully, indeed, she is too beautiful. With this kind of girl, if you are together with her and you have no powerful background or skills, you will end up like Su Yu, heartlessly abandoned. Too sad. Upon hearing that, the 2 girls agreed, poor Su Yu, he was so infatuated. He apparently got on his knees and begged for Jiang Xueqing to come back to him, but was heartlessly rejected, and jumped into the lake. The male student said uncaringly, what's there to be sympathetic about? He does not know his place, serves him well to have his woman taken away. What I am interested in is that I heard Su Yu defeated Qin Feng. It is possible that he will meet Jiang Xueqing at the silver assessment. I really want to know Su Yu's thoughts when he is defeated by Jiang Xueqing. After all, her powers were all given to her by the man who had stolen her, so I think it will be rather humiliating. The 2 girls sighed, poor Su Yu, he must be trying very hard to avoid that scenario. Not sure if he can bear to take action when he meets Jiang Xueqing. The appearance of Jiang Xueqing and Qin Feng had caused a commotion in the crowd. Su Yu overheard the discussion about him, but merely smiled slightly. He had no liking for Jiang Xueqing. This kind of beautiful woman, who liked guys for their money, was easy to find on Earth. When he worked as a white-collar manager at a high-class center on Earth, there were countless women throwing themselves into his arms. What was so rare about that? Although Jiang Xueqing and Qin Feng had yet to form a romantic relationship, Su Yu believed that it would happen soon. It was merely the people in this world being more strict about romance. Su Yu closed his eyes, not bothered by the gossip. Look! Silver King Chen Tiannan has appeared. A shout burst through the crowd at that moment. Su Yu immediately opened his eyes and shifted his gaze. With the audience's gaze fixed on him, a dark-skinned, vicious-looking and skinny male wearing a white robe and silver crown slowly walked through, as though he were the supreme king. With each step he took, the audience's gaze followed and moved an inch, and their heart rate increased by a beat. The Silver King, the strongest member of the Silver Students. Rumor had it that he once challenged Li Mingho, a gold student ranked 30, and only lost by one move. He became the first Silver student to enter the top 30 gold ranks in the institution, and was the strongest Silver King in history. Rumor also had it that his student number plate was a hair away from becoming golden color. He was just a step away from becoming a gold student. With all the attention on him, Chen Tiannan, as the Silver King, sat on the most dazzling seat on the stage. A king's seat made of pure gold, a seat designated only for the Silver King. From that seat, one can see every corner of the arena. Is that the Silver King's sister, Chen Feng, by his side? I heard both her arms were injured in a fight with a silver boy. By Chen Tiannan's side was a young lady in a black robe, who was ugly and had vicious eyes. She was looking around, searching for that unforgettable enemy. Brother! He is there! Chen Feng shouted coldly. Her pupils constricted as she discovered Su Yu's presence, as though she had discovered her arch-nemesis. Su Yu did not hide, and just looked away, his face calm. She would come in the end anyway, so hiding was not a solution. Chen Tiannan looked towards Su Yu, his eyes like daggers that could pierce through Su Yu, making Su Yu shudder. The strong menace that was missing in Xian Lifei, Su Sen and Jiang Xueqing made Su Yu's heart tremble. The students around Su Yu were merely participating in the vicious look but immediately felt uneasy, their faces turning pale. Chen Tiannan. Is he looking at you? Did you offend him? An obese student stammered to the tall student beside him, as his eyes shifted around. What? What are you talking about? He should be looking at you. The tall student stuttered, lowering his head and averting his eyes. The students nearby fidgeted their bodies uneasily, that vicious look caused quite a scare. It is just a look, how big of a deterrence could it be? Chen Tiannan, with the title of the Silver King, how terrible was that? Su Yu was not afraid, and he returned a calm look, not fearing confrontation. Chen Tiannan neither spoke nor threatened, but merely smiled a vicious smile. Brother! You have to avenge me. Chen Feng said bitterly. Chen Tiannan took back his gaze coldly and said, Don't worry. He hurt my Feng.er, brother will end his life in the most cruel way. His voice was raspy, like two metal pieces being rubbed together, and was unpleasant to the ear. Chen Feng's lips parted to show a vicious cold smile. Her brother's skills were terrifying, and could make people become crazy. His life was over. Half an hour later, all 10,000 silver students had arrived. The 100 judging masters had also arrived. Since there would be a large number to students at the silver assessment, many masters had to be transferred over. Master Jiang, who had taught the celestial being to practice arrows, was among them on that day. Beside him was a middle-aged man in a blue robe, Jiang Zhisher. Jiang Zhisher was in a high position, holding on to the students' learning resources, and had the title of head judge. He had also achieved the scary level 4 peak. Besides that, the leaders of the institution had arrived. Among them, the most attention-grabbing was undoubtedly the vice housemaster. In the Martial Arts Training Institute, there is a housemaster and a vice housemaster, and they are the highest managers in the institute. The housemaster's powers had apparently reached the intimidating level 7, and he was an undefeatable legend-like power in the Xianyu prefecture. As for the vice housemaster, he was a terrifyingly strong figure in level 6, with only a few strong figures in the whole Xianyu prefecture worthy of being his opponent. Su Yu was sizing up this vice housemaster. Middle-aged, pure white robe, handsome, valuable powers, but he looked indifferent and cold. Su Yu had some degree of respect for him. His surname was Yi, and he was in charge of discipline matters in the institute. Any student that broke the rules would be subjected to his review and punishment, and everyone was in awe with him. He was fair, and although he was a strict person, he was not biased. Even when dealing with gold students, he showed no favoritism, thus the silver students liked and respected him. Housemaster Yi took a look at the arena and nodded slightly. Jiang Zhishe received the confirmation, looked around coldly and shouted in a deep voice, "The annual silver assessment elimination competition officially starts now. Everybody will be split into teams randomly based on your student number. 10,000 people will be split into 100 teams. According to the rules, everyone will have 10 chances to be tested. If you can win 5 rounds, you will have passed the assessment." To win 5 out of 5 rounds meant that half the students would not achieve 5 rounds, thus eliminating them from the competition. Many silver students were feeling uneasy. These kind of assessments also had some element of luck. Out of the 10 rounds, if you could meet 5 weaker opponents, then the chances of staying would be very high. Of course, if luck was not on your side, and you entered the same team as the people who were ranked in the first 100, the chances of being eliminated would be very high. Following that, Jiang Zhishe mixed up the 10,000 student number plates and randomly assigned 100 teams. Su Yu's luck was neither good nor bad. In his team, there was just a silver student who was ranked 30th. Su Yu inquired and found out the student was called Li Minghai, who was at level 2 peak, comparable to himself. "Minghai, brother will watch out for you, whoever dares to be ruthless to you will not be forgiven by me." A slightly familiar voice entered Su Yu's ears. Su Yu turned his head and his pupils involuntarily constricted slightly. Su Yu had seen the person who had spoken before. It was the person who had stolen Su Sen's girlfriend and later dumped her, gold student Li Mingho. Su Sen went to seek revenge, but ended up knocked out in the fight. His power was terrifying. However, what truly surprised Su Yu was the silver student named Minghai. He was a follower of the young princess of Xianyu, but had been kicked out by Su Yu that day. He turned out to be a silver student of the institute too. Su Yu felt a slight nervousness in his heart. If he were to be recognized, he would be in big trouble. Fortunately, Su Yu was alert and used his shirt to hide his face. They would soon be fighting face-to-face, the opponent might not be able to recognize him. Moreover, Su Yu was not the only one who learned the universal stroke technique. He would not be able to pinpoint Su Yu based on that. Feeling his gaze, Li Minghai returned the stare. There was nothing special in his look. He had apparently not recognized Su Yu as the vulgar thief that the Duke of Xianyu sought. Su Yu and his team were brought to one of the arenas, and the judge coolly announced the starting of the tests. After a few rounds, it was Su Yu's turn. Su Yu, against Chen Luming. Luming was at level 2 upper tier, a tier lower than Su Yu, but was still a silver student near the top 100 ranking. "You are the Su Yu who defeated Chen Feng." Liu Ming's face showed his readiness to fight as he said, "Very well. I had once written you a challenge book, which you ignored. Now is my chance to fight you. Let's fight." Su Yu said concisely as his crystalline pupils constricted. Fighting was a chance to sharpen his skills. The crystalline pupils that could increase HS speed should only be used at a crucial moment. Lu Ming was ready to fight and he started his attack. Wolf attack. Lu Ming shouted deeply. The wolf attack technique was a low-class, middle-level technique, with good power and it was easy to master. His feet were full of power and he came crashing in like a giant wolf, his 2 fists in front of his chest like a wolf's fangs. Su Yu did not move, his eyes staring coldly, until the opponent was within a 1-meter range. He then suddenly kicked out his right leg like a leather whip, a black shadow flashing past. Continuous jade leaf kick. The continuous attacks were linked together, completed within that moment. After many days of training, continuous jade leaf kick had been trained to the top class level, its power not to be looked down upon. Liu Ming's body took the attack, and flew backwards like it had been knocked by multiple ships, landing outside of the arena. The judge's eyes lit up slightly. To have completed training for continuous jade leaf kick to the top class, no wonder its power was so strong. The surrounding people were attracted to this fight as well. Everyone's gaze was on Su Yu. No one was looking at him before this, but he now had all their attention. To many level 1 and even level 2 people, Su Yu was definitely a dangerous target. To have defeated a level 2 top tier with basic leg techniques is indeed terrifying. Chapter 13. The Fine Soldier. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Nyo-i.bo Studio Editor. Nyo-i.bo Studio. Su Yu did not have any sense of accomplishment, and took out his opponent's student number plate expressionlessly. He got some additional martial arts energy, and the silver-gray number plate showed a hint of white-silver color. After a few rounds. Sun Fei, against Su Yu. I admit defeat. Sun Fei bit her lip slightly, painfully watching her student number plate lose a quarter of its martial arts energy. She was only a level 2 lower tier. To pass the assessment would not be difficult, but to meet Su Yu was her bad luck. Even the level 2 top tier was defeated with one trick. Why would she bring hardship to herself? It would be better to save her energy for the future fights. Next up were Su Yu's fights. I admit defeat. I'm not fighting, defeat admitted. Ha! I want to try. Continuous jade leaf kick. Su Yu had achieved 4 consecutive wins. He was one fight away from passing the assessment. The judge said with a hint of smile, Su Yu, against Li Minghai. Whoa! These two fierce gods are finally meeting. Su Yu and Li Minghai were the 2 strongest people on their team, both with 4 consecutive wins and no losses. One was an old student with a reputation outside of the institute, ranked in the top 30 among the silvers. Another was a rising star, defeating his opponents with one basic leg technique. Unknowingly, Su Yu had gained some fame. Information about him spread like wildfire. What, the Su Yu who kneeled on the floor and begged for Jiang Xueqing's heart, but failed and then jumped into the river? Are you sure it's him? That's impossible. I heard Su Yu is only level 1, how could he be so powerful? Whoa, just 2 months and he changed so much. Not sure what that Jiang Xueqing will think when she sees him. Upon the judge's announcement, the 2 of them jumped onto the arena. Li Minghai stood with his hands folded, a vicious smile playing on his lips as he said, "You are not bad, but too bad you are up against me. You received quite a bit of martial arts energy just now, you need to give me a chance." Su Yu coolly glanced at his opponent's student number plate. It was still silver-white, and although not a dazzling silver-white, he was much more powerful than Su Yu. If he could get his opponent's martial arts energy, his student number plate would undergo big changes. Wouldn't we know once we fight? Su Yu gave it a thought and decided that against him, it would best to leave some energy in reserve. He would counter with basic leg techniques, to avoid slipping up and being recognized. Li Minghai laughed coldly, "Do you think that I am the same as you and can only train in the lower class techniques?" He was Li Mingho's brother and the attendant for the young princess of Xianyu. How could his martial arts skills be bad? Tiger fists. Li Minghai shouted deeply, his fists pushed forward as he reversed for power and pounced high in the air, like a tiger. Be it his stance or his fist skills, they were fierce and majestic. Su Yu felt as though a black shadow was pressing on him, making it hard to breathe. In the Twilight Mountains, Li Minghai had been badly injured and had just woken up. His rushed display of tiger fists was not even half as powerful as then. If it were Li Minghai at his peak, Suyu might not have been able to escape that day. However, Suyu was not the same as that day. In the 8 days since, his power had made great improvements. Continuous jade leaf kick. Suyu remained fearless. With his left leg standing steadily on the ground, Suyu raised his right leg, bent his knee, and suddenly kicked it out. Under the strong explosive force, his right leg brought about a patch of black shadow in the air. With the loud sound of wind, his right leg landed a precise kick on Li Minghai's jaw. Li Minghai was unlike the rest. His tiger fists retracted and blocked the front of his jaws. Bang! The pouncing tiger pose acted as a slight obstacle. Taking the chance, Li Minghai returned to stand on the ground, his face slightly changed. In his heart, he was shocked. The explosive force was so strong. Without years of training, it would be hard to reach that level. Feeling his slightly aching arms, Li Minghai's eyes grew angrier as he said, "You are looking for death." However, what caused Li Minghai's face to change color again was that his opponent did not rest after the kick. Under the coordinated movement of the ankle and knee joints, Suyu actually shifted over onto his left leg only. His retracted right leg was like a continuous whip, continuing to kick. Li Minghai was furious, but he could only temporarily use his arms to block. The audience below the stage was in shock. Li Minghai was fought by Suyu to the point whereby he could not retaliate. Li Minghai had long been established as a silver power. This Suyu, he is too terrifying. Bang! At the edge of the arena, Suyu suddenly attacked and kicked Li Minghai off the arena. Ah! Young man, I remember you. Li Minghai felt bitter. The middle-class techniques which he had been training in were defeated by his opponent's basic leg techniques. How is that not embarrassing? Behind him, brother Li Mingho gave Suyu a cold stare. Following that, he scolded Li Minghai, useless. Can't even beat an unknown junior. It is him being too sly. Li Minghai was unconvinced. Li Mingho coolly replied, sly. Although he was using the basic technique, it had reached the peak stage, with a natural flow between his leg techniques. Although you have middle-class techniques, you only trained one level, with many flaws in them. Under the same realm, what's strange about defeating you? A soldier's most valuable part is his brain, he understands this logic better than you. Upon being scolded, Li Minghai's anger immediately dissipated. He felt wronged as he said, "Brother, stop scolding me, I know already. Won't you help me take revenge?" Glancing at Suyu, Li Mingho shook his head and said coolly, "He is too weak, not worthy of my fight. I will let Xian Lifei know, to teach him lesson if she meets him." Xian Lifei. Li Minghai was overjoyed. Xian Lifei had been trying to please his brother, hoping to gain some benefits, and this was her chance. Among the silver students, Xian Lifei was very popular, second only to Jiang Xueqing, who was one of the top 3 beauties. She was famous for her sweet and cute face, and her small but mature frame. Too bad she was very sly, walking among many powerful figures, but never letting men take advantage of her, and was the cause of lust and headache for many playboys. Xian Lifei's strong power was second only to the Silver King. If she were to meet Suyu, it would be too easy to teach him a lesson. Suyu, 5 consecutive wins. Successfully passed, the judge announced with a smile, the first student with 5 consecutive wins had appeared. Having defeated Li Minghai with one move, Suyu's popularity completely soared. The students from the other teams also threw inquiring looks, wondering who this unknown power was. In a team not far away, Jiang Xueqing's eyes looked around slightly as she kept a light gaze on Suyu. "I didn't think that you would grow to such an extent." A ray of surprise flashed past Jiang Xueqing's eyes, but was immediately clouded by coolness. "Too bad, you are still not enough for me, Jiang Xueqing. I, Jiang Xueqing, am fated to live an extraordinary life. You, Suyu, will never be enough for me." Jiang Xueqing shook her head slightly and returned her gaze expressionlessly. The elimination round of the silver assessment was gradually coming to an end. Some people had been lucky enough to pass and were celebrating. There were also people who had unfortunately lost and were crying loudly. The sounds of celebrations and cries mixed together to form a complicated rhythm, playing in Su Yu's heart. This is indeed a cruel world. Su Yu sat down quietly below the arena, slowly opening his eyes. He took in the sight of the defeated students who would go back to their dorms and pack their bags, to return home all alone. If not for the 9 dragons and the incredible cauldron, he might be one of those people. Su Yu curled his fists tightly as he suddenly lamented that his power was still too weak. If he stopped improving, there would come a day where he would be defeated in another arena. Determined to train, Su Yu closed his eyes to rest. An hour later, there were only 200 people left at the venue. They were all the winners with shinier silver number plates. Su Yu had 5 consecutive wins, and his student number plate had since turned from silver.gray into silver.white. Next up, was another highlight of the silver assessment, the silver ranking competition. This was the portion that concerned those with a high level the most. The front part of the assessment was low level and they were not too concerned, only witnessing some signs of the silver assessment in front of their eyes. To put it harshly, to them the top 200 silver students were just slightly larger trash. Only gold students were considered to have passed. For this ranking assessment, they were still in 10 teams, each team with 20 people. This time, Su Yu knew no one on his team. However, quite a number of people in the team knew him. Su Yu, the fierce lord, is also on our team. He is very strong, we are rather unlucky. What is there to fret about? Even without Su Yu, it would be hard for us to get a good ranking. Didn't you see that Jiang Fan, the silver power ranked 4th, is also here, a silver student at level 2 peak sighed helplessly. Also, look at who the judge is in this arena, another silver student at level 2 peak said quietly. They turned their heads and saw that their judge was the master who had taught archery, Master Jiang. His rough face and fierce eyes made him unforgettable. Jiang Fan is the only son of Jiang Zhisher. With only one son, he usually cares and protects him a lot. Today, there is Jiang Zhisher's brother, Master Jiang, covering for him. In the arena, even if you had the skill to beat him, no one would dare to. That's right, if Jiang Zhisher seeks revenge afterwards, you are in trouble. Jiang Fan stood proudly among the crowd, a crown on his head. Although he was handsome looking, his chin was slightly tilted upwards and he usually walked this way as well, giving people the impression that he was looking at them with his nostrils. But he indeed had the rights to be this way. To be ranked silver number 4 is enough to speak for his strong power. With his martial arts at level 2 peak, middle-class skills and Jiang Zhisher's pointers at the institute, those were enough to set him far apart from Li Minghai. First round, Jiang Fan against Wei Tao Doviko below the stage, everyone's eyes suddenly looked nervous. The first round was already Jiang Fan. Wei Tao is still in the top 10 among the silver students. He apparently comes from a small-scale family, with middle-class skills. His power is very tough, which a year ago made him famous throughout the institute. Under the audience's gaze, Jiang Fan hopped onto the arena with his nostrils looking down on people, just like an eagle opening its wings, light and elegant. Jiang Fan's movement techniques are good, the students were envious. Movement techniques had great assisting powers, and many people wanted to learn and train in them. But it was usually extremely difficult to master excellent movement techniques. The eagle wings, which were present in the Buddhist scriptures, had been attempted by many but few had successfully mastered it. It was too difficult to understand. Even after looking at it for days, one could not find a solution. As such, most of the time was wasted and many would decide to give up. To give up on main techniques for assisting techniques was not worth it. Of course, there were movement techniques that were easier to master, but those had weak effects. Jiang Fan showed his skills and caused many to become envious. Master Jiang nodded his head slightly. This nephew of his had some fight in him, and did not let him disappoint his brother's entrustment. Chapter 14. Full Streak. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Nyo iwo Studio Editor. Nyo iwo Studio. Following that, it was Wei Tao's turn to go on stage. He jumped on, but his movement techniques seemed clumsy. Wei Tao was 15 years old, but he was born chubby, and his strong face made him look like a mature 20-year-old. His body was strong, with the muscles in his arms, chest, abdomen and legs looking like inflated balloons that were going to explode, giving people a powerful sense of force. Su Yu clicked his tongue quietly. To enter the top 10 silver ranking, you had to be extraordinary. I heard that last week, Wei Tao challenged Fan Li, who is ranked number 5, and almost defeated him. His current powers are more than enough to enter the top 6. That's right, I have also heard that. It would not be easy for Jiang Fan to defeat him. Master Jiang's thick black eyebrows frowned slightly as he said, "The testing starts now." Jiang Fan nodded his chin slightly and said, "I will let you have one move, go on and take action." Hearing that, the audience could not help but gasp. Isn't Jiang Fan crazy? To look down on him like that? Wei Tao was instantly humiliated and replied, "Jiang Fan, stop looking down on people. Even Fan Li was almost defeated by me, how much stronger can you be?" Jiang Fan stood with his arms crossed, and although his cool gaze was on Wei Tao, his eyes only took in another person who was in the same direction, Chen Tiannan. He could only see the Silver King, and not the people who were weaker than him. How arrogant! The audience could not help the tremor in their minds. To have been completely overlooked, Wei Tao was furious. Lion Overlord. Wei Tao's terrifying explosive body charged towards Jiang Fan. The fierce energy shifted the airflow, blowing through the robes of the audience. So fast. The audience could not help their cry, as they felt scared for Jiang Fan. Jiang Fan seemed to have been too proud this time, and would have to suffer a loss. Whoosh! Just as Wei Tao almost crashed into him, Jiang Fan rose onto his toes and levitated, bringing him 2 meters above the ground, easily avoiding that powerful collision. A hint of disdain and ridicule showed through Jiang Fan's lips. "I have already let you have a hand." The cool voice entered Wei Tao's ears. Wei Tao's face paled, and a great sense of foreboding washed over him. Eagle Claw. Jiang Fan's toes turned into hooks in the air, and as he spun during his descent, they looked like turning screws, aimed for Wei Tao's neck. Bang! The great force from his neck caused Wei Tao's muscular body to fall to his knees. Not waiting for Wei Tao's retaliation, Jiang Fan's toes spun again as they kicked Wei Tao above his temples. Wei Tao only had time to scream before he fainted from the kick. The temples were one of the most dangerous points on the human body. To suffer a kick there and faint is already considered a light injury. This Jiang Fan, he shows no mercy. Su Yu's felt a slight coldness in his heart. Jiang Fan returned to the ground, a look of disdain on his face, as he had defeated Wei Tao so easily. He glanced at Wei Tao coolly as he said, "Can't even take an attack. Let me tell you, Fan Li can't get past this trick under me. What use is it that you almost defeated him?" Gasp! The sounds of the audience gasping came one after another. Rank number 5 Fan Li couldn't take an attack from Jiang Fan. Jiang Fan has become strong again. Last time Fan Li could narrowly take 10 tricks under him, but now not even one. Master Jiang announced with a smile, "Jiang Fan wins." Following that, Jiang Fan went on the stage multiple times and without exception, defeated his opponents with one move. Of course, Su Yu was not too different, defeating his opponents with one move of continuous jade leaf kick. Half a day later. Whoa! Jiang Fan is so strong, he already has 18 consecutive wins. And Su Yu, he has taken everyone by surprise, with 18 consecutive wins as well. Without a doubt, Su Yu was the biggest dark horse in this silver assessment. Go Su Yu. I support you. Some female students who were sympathetic for his past relationship cheered him on. Many silver students who had been at the bottom levels for a long time viewed Su Yu as a learning goal, and cheered him on. Out of the 3,000 or so students who had passed the elimination round, about 400 to 500 were cheering him on. Although the sounds were sparse, Su Yu could be heard every once in a while. In the VIP audience seats, Lord Yi followed the cheers of the audience and shifted his gaze. Jiang Zhishi, the head judge, also could not help but realize Su Yu. His face instantly drooped slightly. How could it be him? If he hadn't seen him with own eyes, Jiang Zhishi would have forgotten him. Duke Qin had reminded him multiple times to chase Su Yu out of the institute and disrupt his future. Jiang Zhishi did not think about the matter, as with Su Yu's qualifications and strength, he was bound to have been eliminated, but how did he make it into the ranking round? To Jiang Zhishi, it was surreal. Was that Su Yu he was looking at, the real Su Yu? With these thoughts flashing through his mind, Jiang Zhishi had a look of seriousness. This matter was instructed by Duke Qin, how could he mess up? However, with the housemaster present, it was not acceptable for him to settle private matters, so he could only act should a chance arise. Although, realizing his son was at the venue made him more relaxed. With his son present, he knew without a doubt that he had to stop there. In the arena, Master Jiang stared at Su Yu with a hint of dislike. He had an impression of him. He was good at archery and was admired by Miss Xia, to the extent that she gifted him her own Kirin Bao. He did not expect that besides archery, his skills were also so powerful, winning 18 consecutive rounds using his perfect basic leg technique. As such, both he and Jiang Fan were one round away from achieving 19 consecutive wins, achieving the stage of complete victory. Next round, Jiang Fan vs Su Yu. Jiang Fan went onto the stage elegantly as per usual. In comparison, Su Yu appeared extremely clumsy. I'm letting you have one hand. Jiang Fan, who looked at people through his nostrils, still had no eyes for even Su Yu's shadow. Many people were feeling nervous for Su Yu, as Jiang Fan was very powerful. Just as everyone was feeling anxious, an inharmonious voice made them freeze. Hey, your nostrils are so turned up, aren't you afraid a bird will poop inside? Su Yu pursed his lips. An unknown person almost spit out his mouthful of tea. Many people below the stage covered their mouths and laughed quietly. This Su Yu, he had a really bad mouth. Jiang Fan's eyes instantly turned cold as he said, "Humph. The trash whose woman was stolen from him has the courage to laugh in my face today. Might as well. You sought your own death, don't blame me for not showing mercy." Jiang Fan rose onto his toes, displaying his movement techniques, his form like a spirit. It all happened very fast. When he was 3 meters away, he rose into the air, like a huge bird opening its wings. Next, he spun down, his feet like a bird's claw, aiming for Su Yu's head. Judging by his stance, he was not concerned whether Su Yu would be injured, his vicious technique witnessed by all. Su Yu's expression was calm. In his eyes, which were as deep as outer space, there were no signs of disturbance. They sharply searched for a weakness in his opponent's position, and his right leg lashed out like a whip. Jiang Fan's spinning left leg was blocked by the kick. Following that, his right leg pursued Su Yu like a bird's claw, and he gave a cold smile as he said, "The basic leg technique, no matter how perfect, cannot be compared to the middle-class techniques that belong to the top tier. Get lost." Jiang Fan's right leg came swinging in without obstructions. Su Yu's face had a slight look of ridicule. At the last moment, he changed his pose. Universal stroke. His fists and feet went out one after another, with smooth transitions that showed no signs of stagnation. Before his fist was done punching, his leg attacked. Once his leg stopped, another fist came. With the speed of the fists and legs, they could not be differentiated from each other. Jiang Fan's face suddenly froze. With him in the air, he had no choice but to use his feet to block. But, with nowhere to tap energy from, how could the speed of his legs be faster than the fierce and continuous attack? Bang! All of a sudden, Su Yu's leg gave a hard kick and hit his opponent squarely in the crotch. Jiang Fan's face paled as he gasped for air. After he tumbled onto the ground, he covered his crotch with his hands, cold sweat on his forehead, not daring to move. Any movement, and he would experience piercing pain. You dare to injure me? You better watch out. Jiang Fan said furiously as his eyes gave a stare. Su Yu did not show mercy, and the universal stroke continued. A fist to his opponent's head caused him to fly out of the arena. The double encounters of extreme pain caused Jiang Fan to pass out. The audience below the stage gasped. They had already categorized Su Yu as the biggest dark horse, but no one thought that Su Yu would be so much stronger than what they had imagined. Even Jiang Fan, who was ranked fourth, was not an opponent. Instantly, this grabbed everyone's attention. With the defeat of fourth-ranked Jiang Fan, a powerful figure comparable to the top three in the silver ranking had appeared. Housemaster Yi, who had been watching throughout, squeezed out a smile on his cool face. Universal stroke, looks like it had been trained to level 2 top class, reaching 4 consecutive attacks. Jiang Fan's defeat is reasonable. Head Judge Jiang Zhisher and Judge Master Jiang suddenly paled and rushed down together, to check on Jiang Fan's injury. Realizing it was just a temporary loss of consciousness, they let out a breath. Master Jiang looked back fiercely, Su Yu. It's just a learning experience, did you have to be so ruthless? Facing his fierce look, Su Yu said naturally, Jiang Fan was ruthless all the time. He even dared to kick an area as dangerous as Wei Tao's temples, and Master Jiang saw this but did not stop him. I thought this was a life or death battle, so to protect myself, I was more ruthless. Jiang Fan can get away with being ruthless, but I am merely a student with no background, so I get the blame for being ruthless once. If I had known earlier I would have stood still and let Jiang Fan beat me to death. Su Yu's face was full of regret. Instantly, many obscure looks were seen, all full of dissatisfaction. Housemaster Yi, whose expression also showed slight coldness, lightly chided, to shield your family members, you also need to look at the occasion. Head Judge Jiang Zhisher realized the bad situation and gave Master Jiang a fierce stare, do you have a brain? Such obvious bias, aren't you seeking trouble for yourself? Between thoughts, he announced in a dignified manner, it has been confirmed, Su Yu is not suspected of cheating. Su Yu wins. Oh. They were checking if Su Yu had reason to be suspected of cheating. This far-fetched reason was not believed by many, but gave the brothers a way out. Otherwise, they would not have a good ending with the angry crowd. Su Yu had a record of 19 consecutive wins, and became the first in his team. At that moment, Su Yu's student number plate was dazzling, as it had reached the stage of a silver. White color. Looking at the undefeatable dark horse Su Yu, many had different reactions. Chen Feng's fingernails pierced into her palms and she said bitterly, in just a few days, how did he become so strong? A large hand patted her shoulder lightly, and a rough cold voice said, what is Jiang Fan? In front of me, he doesn't even have the courage to look at me. Su Yu defeating him is nothing much. Chen Tiannan's expression was cold, his eyes indifferent, with a sense of loneliness of the undefeatable. For the Silver King, there still existed no opponent among the Silver students. In the year with rare competitors, he could only cure his loneliness through finding the gold students. Hearing that, Chen Feng's face relaxed, her mind at ease. Chapter 15. The Lovers' Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 15. The Lovers' Battle. Translator. Nyo I.Bo Studio Editor. Nyo I.Bo Studio. Jiang Xueqing was resting beside Qin Feng. With her level 3 power, she was also a dark horse, achieving first in her team. Just at that moment, she glanced at Su Yu's team, and a hint of surprise flashed through her pretty eyes. Su Yu was even stronger than she had imagined, and could even defeat Jiang Fan. She felt a sense of tightness in her chest. For some unknown reason, the stronger Su Yu became, the more uncomfortable she felt. She was very unwilling to see Su Yu become more powerful. At that moment, she heard a warm voice. Ching.er, if you meet Su Yu later, remember to show some mercy. You are level 3, and he is level 2. If you are too ruthless, you will injure him. Qin Feng seemed gentle, as he sighed, after all, the two of you used to be a pair. To have to fight each other increases my sin, as it me who caused the two of you to be in today's state. Jiang Xueqing started as she came to the sudden realization. That's right. As a level 3, to have to fight a level 2, isn't that the prey coming to her hand? If she were to meet Su Yu later, she would openly defeat him without a doubt. As the uneasiness in her mind dissipated, Jiang Xueqing looked back. Her soft eyes looked at Qin Feng as she gently said, Brother Feng, you are too kind. You don't owe Su Yu anything and you don't have to blame yourself. As she talked and looked over to Su Yu once again, Jiang Xueqing's eyes were cold and expressionless. She said, our relationship ended a long time ago. From now on, my body and heart only belongs to Brother Feng. As for Su Yu, I will defeat him with absolute power, to let him know that he is not worthy of me, Jiang Xueqing. Jiang Xueqing gave Su Yu a cold stare. A cold smile was hidden deep in Qin Feng's eyes. He did not care whether Su Yu lived, and only took the chance to comfort Jiang Xueqing, as he was afraid that her heart might be moved by Su Yu's rise in power. However, hearing her body and heart only belongs to Brother Feng made him feel more comfortable. This Jiang Xueqing was indeed too beautiful, like a fox fairy. To be able to get her, Qin Feng felt it was partly due to luck. As the junior duke, he had seen many pretty ladies, but someone like Jiang Xueqing was extremely rare. It was a pity that although she was his girlfriend by name, they had remained proper and had no any form of physical contact before, not even touching hands. You can handle it yourself. 1 month later, at the gold student competition, after I win first place, I will top it by asking my father to help us get engaged. How about that? Qin Feng was feeling excited. Jiang Xueqing was delicate. Her body shook slightly and she bit her lips as she took a distant look at the common Su Yu. After a long while, she nodded her head lightly, okay. With that, okay, it was destined that she could no longer turn back. A month from now, she would be Qin Feng's fiancée, Duke Qin's daughter.in.law and a lady under the world founder. She would lead a rich and prosperous life, above billions of people. Su Yu. Don't blame me, it is you who is useless, my beauty should not be buried by you. Sighing quietly in her mind, Jiang Xueqing closed her eyes. Qin Feng was overjoyed. 1 month later, at the golden competition, I, Qin Feng, will get first place. An unmatchable belief flooded Qin Feng's brain. Li Minghai has been watching Su Yu for a long time, with suspicion in his eyes. The similar fist and leg techniques made him think of the masked figure he had met on the Huanghun mountain. What is it? Li Mingho was collecting his things to leave with Li Minghai. With him being number 30 in the silver ranking, he could not enter the top 10 and Li Minghai's fight had ended, so he was preparing to leave. Li Minghai said hesitantly, I think the person wanted by the Duke of Xianyu resembles him. That fist and leg technique is very similar. Is it? Li Mingho shook his head slightly, that is universal stroke, many people train in it. Just now, at least 10 people displayed that technique, but their power was not as strong as what you said. To be able to hit consecutively 8 times is the power of a level 3 lower tier, and can only be accomplished by a gold student. Li Minghai gave it some thought and agreed, this Su Yu was just a pitiful bug who had been dumped. Although he didn't know how his power suddenly improved so much, training Universal Stroke to a high level would be too difficult. If I didn't have to rush back to accompany the young princess to relieve her of boredom, I would really like to see how Xian Lifei would punish him later. Li Minghai tossed a slight look at Su Yu and left unwillingly. Su Yu, who was secretly watching the two of them depart, let out a sign of relief in his mind. With Li Minghai gone, he could let loose. An hour later, the silver ranking competition came to an end. The last highlight was finally starting. Jiang Zhisher, as the head judge, stood at the huge central arena. The last challenge, the fight for the Silver King, officially starts now. The 10 winners please come on stage. Su Yu and the others filed into the arena. They all had the highest number of consecutive wins in the 20-person team. Jiang Xueqing was one of them. Silver King Chen Tiannan remained seated. After the 10 people in the arena dueled, only the strongest would qualify to challenge the former Silver King. The 10 of you will draw straws to compete. In the first round, 5 people will be eliminated. Out of the remaining 5, 4 will fight and 1 will enter the semi-final straight away, Jiang Zhisher announced. Su Yu and the rest came forward to duel according to their order. His luck was not bad, and he picked the student who had been ranked in position 6. He won this fight without a doubt. Jiang Xueqing's luck was good too, and she easily defeated the student ranked number 8. Following that, Su Sen, ranked number 3, won. Xian Lifei, ranked number 2, won. The last person was ranked number 5, Fan Li, had better luck and met the student ranked number 9, allowing her to enter the semi-finals. There were only 5 people left. Let's start drawing straws. There is one empty straw, the person who draws that does not have to compete and will enter the semi-finals straight away, Jiang Zhisher announced indifferently. The 5 people drew their straws successively. Su Yu quietly looked at his straw, and was instantly shocked. His luck was too good. His straw did not have an opponent's name, which meant that he had entered the semi-finals. Out of the 4 remaining people, Jiang Xueqing looked forward steadily and did not look at him once. The other 3 threw him envious looks. It was easy for Su Yu to be happy, as he got to watch the fights from the side and observe their powers at the same time. The fight between Jiang Xueqing and Fan Li was not very exciting. With her level 3 cultivation base, Jiang Xueqing used the rolling technique and finished off Fan Li with 2 moves, entering the semi-finals. Su Yu's focus remained on Xian Lifei, and Su Senator 1 was second among the silvers, and had apparently narrowly achieved success in a challenge against Chen Tiannan. The other was third among the silvers, whose power was not to be looked on lightly. Both of them were at level 3 lower tier, and it was unknown how far apart their powers were. Xian Lifei went on stage laughing. Her petite body had a seductive outline, and caused many male students to secretly cast youthful passionate looks at her. Xian Lifei was like a little fairy. "Huh, brother Su Sen, you have to show mercy." Xian Lifei smiled flirtatiously. Su Sen's face darkened. After being betrayed by Li Qian and being defeated by Li Mingho, he was feeling frustrated and ignored her, coolly saying, "Let us start." Swift horizontal knife, he back-handedly retrieved his knife, his expression looking more fierce, as though he could only maintain this mode when fighting. Xian Lifei hit her waist laughingly, and 2 purple bats flew out from a small colorful pocket. Different from normal bats, purple bats gave off a strong sense of demonism, and the people could feel their fierceness. Category 1 Demonic Beasts, purple-blooded bats. Some people who recognized the creatures were shocked. Su Yu's pupils constricted slightly. He vividly remembered the power of Category 1 Demonic Beasts. The fire dragon was just as hard to handle. However, by intuition, it seemed like the purple-blooded bats were far less powerful than the fire dragon. That is the young version of the Category 1 Demonic Beasts. Their power is merely around level 3 lower tier. Look how scared you are. A more experienced older student pursed his lips. The surrounding audience came to the realization, so it is. If it were a mature Category 1 demonic beast, Xian Lifei would have become the Silver King. However, despite them being young, they are still very dangerous. Purple-blooded bats can give off ultrasounds that cannot be heard by human ears, causing people to feel faint. They will take the chance to approach and suck your blood. The poisons contained in their bodies will also enter the human body, causing poisonous paralysis and death. In the forest, purple-blooded bats usually live in groups. Once you encounter them, even a level 4 would be poisoned and paralyzed, and slowly sucked dry by a group of purple-blooded bats. Hearing that, the people who were learning about this for the first time shuddered. In the arena, Su Sen's expression changed, and he started sweeping horizontally with the long knife in his hand, hoping to sweep away the two purple-blooded bats. A sweet smile played on the corners of Xian Lifei's lips as she whistled. Instantly, the two purple-blooded bats took the chance to open their mouths and emitted silent ultrasounds. Su Sen's body suddenly flickered as he quickly reversed, clenching his teeth and furrowing his brows, a look of pain appearing on his face. Taking this chance, Xian Lifei approached and lightly placed her small tender hands on Su Sen's body. Su Sen wanted to retaliate, but the two purple-blooded bats had fluttered over, releasing the ultrasounds at a short distance and blocking Su Sen's body. In the end, Su Sen suffered a hit and was hit off the arena. Jiang Zhishe nodded slightly. Xian Lifei had pressured Su Sen, and was deserving of her second place in the silver ranking. Xian Lifei wins. As such, there were only 3 people left. Su Yu, Jiang Xueqing, and Xian Lifei. Out of the 3, only one would remain and ultimately challenge Silver King Chen Tiannan. Jiang Zhishe secretly glanced at Su Yu, coolness in his eyes. He had performed brilliantly, from a common silver student who was about to be eliminated, to his state today. It was a pity that he had to stop here. Both Jiang Xueqing and Xian Lifei remained were at level 3. There was no chance for Su Yu to win. The semi-finals officially start now. First round, Su Yu vs Jiang Xueqing. There was an uproar in the audience as everyone perked up their attention. Chapter 16. The Revenge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Nyo-i.bo Studio Editor. Nyo-i.bo Studio. Interesting. Too interesting. A mediocre person, abandoned by Jiang Xueqing, has actually appeared in front of her to duel. I really want to know what Jiang Xueqing is thinking right now. The 2 people went on stage. Jiang Xueqing's snow-like eyes showed no change. She looked at Su Yu like he was a stranger, with coldness in her eyes. Even Su Yu entering the top silver ranking did not make her feel any sense of remorse. Su Yu, admit defeat. You are not my match, you weren't before, you aren't now, and you will never be. Jiang Xueqing's had no trace of warmth. Su Yu's expression was cool, looking at her like looking at a stranger, remaining silent. To this kind of self-absorbed, heartless woman, even one sentence would be a waste of his saliva and energy. He just silently waited for the judge's command to announce the start of the duel. He did not want to say anything more to her. Receiving silence as a reply, Jiang Xueqing took him as being stubborn and refusing to admit defeat. Shaking her head and raising her eyebrows slightly, disgust filled Jiang Xueqing's eyes as she said, "No repentance. Coming from a poor background, you should watch your attitude. Being stubborn and not admitting defeat, what does it do for you besides make you suffer? Do you know why I left you? It's precisely because you have no skills, no background, yet you protect your pitiful self-esteem, causing me to be looked down upon by other people as well." Jiang Xueqing scolded, as though she had remembered the past and was releasing all her resentment. "So, I left you. And chose my own life. Do you see, the past me was even worse than you, but the present me is far ahead. We will continue to go further and further away from each other. Jiang Xueqing's shoulders shook slightly, a look of relief on her face, as she felt she had finally taken the right path. Looking over at Su Yu again, Jiang Xueqing's pupils returned to their cold and expressionless state as she said, "You, Su Yu, are not good enough for me. You weren't good enough before, and you will not be good enough in the future. Remember my words, you will never be good enough for me. You will never be good enough for me." These words were shouted out in front of thousands of people, in front of the whole institute. The audience looked at each other, some with sympathy, some gloating, and some were disgusted. In a secret location, a lady who looked like a celestial beauty frowned slightly, her gaze sweeping over Jiang Xueqing with some dislike. Her gaze jumped to Su Yu. The celestial beauty's eyes had a hint of sympathy and warmth. "So, he is called Su Yu. He is a martial arts genius with good training talent, yet he is treated this way. That Jiang Xueqing will regret this next time." Jiang Jisher jeered silently. To fight for a woman with the junior duke would only have a tragic ending. Su Yu initially wanted to ignore her, but the more this woman talked, the more ridiculous she became. As if her throwing herself into someone else's arms was entirely Su Yu's fault. This kind of logic was just unreasonable. Stretching his back lazily, Su Yu shook his head and said, "You are already a whore, so there is no need to build a sign for it, all right. You yourself are vain, throwing yourself into another man's arms, yet you push the blame on me. Besides that, please do not feel self-absorbed. I, Su Yu, am really not interested in pretentious girls like you," Su Yu said coolly, gazing at Jiang Xueqing as if she was a stranger. The crowd went wild. Su Yu, who used to kneel before Jiang Xueqing and plead with her to change her mind. Su Yu, who once threw himself into the lake due to emotional problems. He actually called Jiang Xueqing a whore in front of the audience. Not only was the crowd shocked, Jiang Xueqing herself was stunned. BL.net in her memories, Su Yu had always coaxed her like a baby, afraid that she would break in his hand, never raising his voice. When he saw she was unhappy, he would be so scared that he wouldn't even dare to breathe heavily. When she scolded him, not only would he not dare to get angry, but he would smile along with it. She never thought that Su Yu would ever call her a whore with the whole crowd watching. For a split second, she even wondered whether the person standing in front of her was Su Yu. It felt like two completely different people. Recovering, Jiang Xueqing's pristine face was flushed. Where was her dignity in front of the whole institute? She hadn't thought about the way she scolded Su Yu like useless trash, telling him he would never be good enough for her. Why wouldn't his dignity be lost then? Chasing to the root of the issue, she only saw herself in her selfish eyes, and never cared about Su Yu's feelings. Jiang Xueqing felt countless pairs of eyes on her, and wished she could bury herself in the ground. She had never been this ashamed in her whole life. A wave of resentment, strong resentment, rose up in her. "Su Yu. I hate you." Anger and hatred filled Jiang Xueqing's eyes. "Hate as you wish." Su Yu shrugged lightly. Her hate could not cause a reaction in his heart. Finishing his sentence, Su Yu turned to look at the judge. "I say, Jiang Jisher, haven't you watched enough of the show? The duel was actually due to start a long time ago, but the person with the surname Jiang was happy to see Su Yu being made fun of, so he pretended to be sorting documents to delay the start time." Annoyance flashed through Jiang Jisher's eyes, and he was just about to give a scolding, when he was met with Housemaster Ye's dissatisfied look. This duel had already been put off for a very long time. Knowing that it could not be delayed any longer, he could only swallow his anger and announce, "The fight starts now. Su Yu. I will not let you off." Full of hatred, Jiang Xueqing pounced forward crazily, starting the fierce fight. Colorful flying ribbons. Jiang Xueqing took her shot in anger. Colorful flying ribbons was a medium-level technique. 3 colorful ribbons shot out from her sleeve and danced on her palms. One ribbon scraped the floor, and took a layer of it off like a knife. If it scraped a human body, it would scrape off a layer of meat. Jiang Xueqing is taking a vicious shot. Just watch, if Su Yu is not the enemy, he should know to surrender and admit defeat, he is not dumb. Jiang Xueqing was heartless. There was only one thought on her mind, which was to torture him, to use extreme torture on this damn man. Don't you dare to think you are going to leave this arena unharmed. Hearing the threatening words, Su Yu's expression remained cool. The instant the colorful ribbons attacked, both his fists and legs were prepared. Universal stroke. The opponent's three colorful ribbons appeared to be twisting at the same time, but Su Yu's eyesight was excellent and he could see that the twisting had a rhythm. He just had to break them one by one, and he could thwart the move. Instantly, he showed his hand. First was a punch to the first colorful ribbon, swiftly and accurately fending it off from the side. After that, with almost no gap in the flow, a leg attacked and kicked off the second ribbon which was about to attack. Immediately following that, a fist punched the last ribbon. Finally, his leg kicked out like a whip, landing precisely on Jiang Xueqing's chest. Jiang Xueqing's face paled and she instantly blocked it with both her arms as she felt the sudden wave of enormous force. What was even scarier was that her opponent's fists and legs did not stop, coming down on her continuously like intense rain, not giving her any chance to take a breath. 4 continuous hits. 8 continuous hits. 16 continuous hits. Finally, Jiang Xueqing could not bear the enormous power. After a cry, she was kicked off the arena by Su Yu. That was Su Yu's first time displaying all of Universal Stroke, and it was displayed on his ex-lover. He never showed any mercy. Standing on the arena, Su Yu looked at Jiang Xueqing, who was injured and had fallen to the ground. Her eyes showed her shock, and she said coolly, "It looks like you are not as strong as you thought. In the past, you were not as good as me, and now you are still not as good as me." Hearing his words, she didn't look at him and returned to the center of the arena, closing her eyes to take a rest. I was actually defeated. Level 3, lost to a level 2. And lost to the man that I once dumped. She felt that on her training journey, she had dumped Su Yu far, but in reality, Su Yu had dumped her. Jiang Xueqing was unable to accept the harsh reality. In her eyes, Su Yu was just a weak and cowardly man with mediocre qualifications. But today, after she had improved by leaps and bounds, just when she thought she could be the star of the day and rise to the top, her opponent shot out his hand and slapped her down from the sky. Such harsh reality was like a bucket of cold water pouring down, freezing her internally. Qin Feng rushed over, staring at Su Yu angrily. He then went to support Jiang Xueqing by the arm, but was rejected by her. Struggling to get up, Jiang Xueqing's eyes were full of hatred, and she said coldly, "Brother Feng. Help me to defeat him. You just have to defeat him, I will be yours." Jiang Xueqing's gaze was firm. She knew that Qin Feng was after her looks, and she knew even more surely that was all she had to attract Qin Feng. She did not let Qin Feng touch her easily because that was her only capital. Qin Feng was overjoyed, his heart beating loudly. For everything, he just had to defeat Su Yu. According to the Institute's rules, gold students were unable to challenge silver students, in order to protect the silver students from bullying. However, there was an exception. That was at the golden assessment a month later. The top 3 gold students could invite the top 3 silver students to duel, to showcase the difference between gold and silver and encourage silver students to improve. The silver students chosen could not reject. All right. In a month, I will easily defeat him, and achieve the honor of the Gold King at the same time. Qin Feng was elated. By their agreement, after achieving the Gold King title, Jiang Xueqing would agree to be engaged to him. After becoming the Gold King, he could get everything. Qin Feng was excited, and couldn't wait for the month to pass. No. A month is too long, I can't wait. Every day that Su Yu was around would be another day that she would not sleep well. Qin Feng's head sobered up a little, he thought for a while and said gloomily, "How about I think of a way to chase him out of the institute?" Jiang Shueqing coldly replied, "Good. Disrupt his future." Jiang Shueqing was very afraid that Su Yu will become better and better, afraid that she would be filled with regret one day. Color flashed past Housemaster Ye's pupils as he praised, "What an amazing boy." A hard skill like Universal Stroke was trained to stage 3 upper class, just a step away from entering the top class with infinite hits. Having defeated Jiang Shueqing, Su Yu's popularity instantly peaked, with cheers for him everywhere. Su Yu could actually counterattack, defeating Jiang Shueqing, who dumped him. Chapter 17. Fighting the Silver King. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio. Su Yu has completely shed himself of his past humiliation. Su Sen sighed, envious and dejected. The atmosphere in the audience was excited. Su Yu, the dark horse, was, indeed, incredibly powerful. He was the highlight of the day. Chen Tianan stared at the arena coldly, his expression cruel. "I never thought he could achieve this." Chen Feng clenched his fists. "No matter how strong he is, he will never match up to my brother," he said bitterly. Everyone in the crowd was excited about Su Yu's next fight. Semi-finals. The last fight, Su Yu vs Xian Lifei. Xian Lifei's power was beyond description. Su Sen had been easily defeated at her hands. "Heh, little brother is so strong, you'll have to show big sister some mercy later." Xian Lifei was all smiles, but deep within her eyes, she held a cold edge. Before he left, Li Mingho had instructed her to viciously punish the boy. He told her to let the purple-blooded bats give him 2 bites, so he would be poisoned, only then should she begin punching. Su Yu smiled as he held up his hands. "Senior, please be sure to show some mercy. The fight starts now." Jiang Zhisher announced harshly. Xian Lifei happily tapped her colorful pocket, out flew 2 purple-blooded bats. Su Yu was waiting. The further away you were, the less dangerous the bat's ultrasound was. In order to avoid the ultrasound attacks, the best thing to do was to stay a good distance from the bats. But the 2 bats were super fast, and Su Sen was unable to hide from the approach of the bats, thus, he was defeated by Xian Lifei. "Go!" Xian Lifei whistled. Push! The 2 purple-blooded bats immediately flew towards Su Yu with blindingly fast speed. There would be no more hiding. Xian Lifei was too strong, any little mistake would end in her defeat. Cloud Shadow. Su Yu grunted deeply. He finally displayed the light-body cultivation technique that he had been hiding for so long. His shadow was like the wind, his light body like the shadow of a cloud, moving around freely with ease. Su Yu was like drifting duckweed, gliding along within a glimpse. The audience only saw a blur, yet Su Yu had moved 10 feet with his incredible speed. Su Yu was more than double the speed of the purple-blooded bats. Xian Lifei hid by the side as she secretly waited for Su Yu to be poisoned. How could she have known Su Yu was hiding such a difficult technique? Xian Lifei realized the bad situation she was suddenly in and swiftly called the bats back as she spread her feet to run away. How could she get Su Yu where she wanted him? The speed of the cloud shadow technique at level 1 top class was not any slower than Xian Lifei. In the small space of the arena, both traveling at the same speed, there was not much room to run. After a while, Xian Lifei was both surprised and angry. She had to fight Su Yu face-to-face. Universal Stroke. In close combat, Su Yu did not hesitate to display his strongest attack technique. At that moment, the purple-blooded bats behind him surged nearer. Su Yu had to end the fight fast. Xian Lifei also realized the situation, and retaliated desperately. She tried to hold off Su Yu and wait for the purple-blooded bats, so they could catch up to them and she could regain control. Xian Lifei was good at controlling demonic beasts, not at close combat. The universal Stokes punches and kicks were extremely fast and had no breaks, they struck her like raindrops, pelting downwards. The 16 consecutive hits felt stretched through time, yet, they only actually occurred within a single breath of space. Ah, the last kick was extraordinarily strong. Xian Lifei was hit in the chest and she fell off the arena. At that time, the purple blooded bats slowed their flying. Having lost their owner, they stopped their attack and returned to their owner's side. Xian Lifei covered her painful chest, her cheeks red with embarrassment as she stared at Su Yu angrily. Really, dare to kick anywhere. Losing this fight was not her fault, the opponent had managed to hide such a powerful technique. If she had known about his skills, she would have never lost. But, ultimately, she had lost. She exited the venue unwillingly. As she passed through a dark channel, Qin Feng appeared brightly. Xian Lifei, complete a task, and you will get a top-grade spirit elixir. Xian Lifei's face changed color and she shouted, top-grade spirit elixir. A low-grade spirit elixir required 100 taels of silver, a middle-grade elixir required 500 taels of silver. But, the top-grade spirit elixir required 2,500 taels of silver. It would be impossible for her to get so many taels of silver, even if she spent the whole year hunting in the Twilight Mountains. Besides someone with a prominent family background like the Junior Duke, who else could afford to provide so much silver? What do you need me to do? Obviously, I'm not letting you touch me. Xian Lifei's pupils were fiery, but she did not forget Qin Feng's previous propositions. Qin Feng pursed his lips apathetically. Why would he be interested in Xian Lifei when he was about to get Jiang Shueqing? You better do this well. Qin Feng handed over a piece of paper, carefully aware of their surroundings. Written on the paper was the task required of Xian Lifei. After she had remembered it, he burned the paper, leaving no trace. This was a crucial moment for his father, and Qin Feng, as his son, could not cause any additional trouble. Xian Lifei was surprised upon seeing the task. She hesitated for a moment, clenched her teeth and agreed, okay. But, you have to give me the spirit elixir first. Qin Feng thought about it and nodded slightly, he handed it over, grimacing. Although he was the Junior Duke, it did not mean he had unlimited silver to burn. His monthly allowance was only around 3,000 taels of silver. But, for today, he actually took out the top-grade spirit elixir, worth 2,500 taels of silver. The task must be completed. That said, Qin Feng blended into the darkness. With his identity and family background, he doubted Xian Lifei would have the courage to steal the spirit elixir and run away without finishing the task. Xian Lifei nodded her head, smiled, and replied, of course. Turning back to look in Su Yu's direction, Xian Lifei smiled sweetly. Sorry little brother. For big sister's spirit elixir, just sacrifice yourself. In the arena, Jiang Zhishir was in disbelief. After a long time, he took a deep breath and coldly announced, semi-finals, Su Yu is the winner. In the VIP seats, Housemaster Ye's face showed a strange expression. It was rare for his indifferent face to have a trace of a happy smile. Su Yu mastered light-body cultivation techniques such as cloud shadow, which even gold students can't successfully train, yet he is able to comprehend it. It is rather surprising. How could he have known that Su Yu could cheat with time-space manipulation? While others studied for 1 day, Su Yu studied for 10 days, for every 10 days others studied, Su Yu had studied for 100. As such, the light-body cultivation technique, while difficult for others to train, was possible for Su Yu. The audience bubbled with excitement. The fight for the Silver King, the final fight, was finally about to start. Su Yu. Go for it. Defeat Chen Tiannan. The students' blood boiled with excitement, especially the silver students who have been in the middle and lower reaches for a long time. Defeat him, and you'll be the next Silver King. In their mind, the Silver King was the supreme king, he was a person to be respected, it was a position they could never touch. However, Su Yu, who, like them, existed in the bottom silver level, could counter-attack and fight for the crown against the dazzling Silver King. In that instant, Su Yu became the spiritual sustenance for countless low-level silver students, he represented their dreams, he had become the black horse for them to wish upon. The crowd went wild. They roared, cried, and screamed as their blood boiled from the heat of their hope. People growled crazily all around, it created an impactful sound which spread throughout the entire institute. No one could keep calm, no one could keep still, and no one could deny the state of the people around them, everyone was affected by the fierce energy within them. The strongest black horse in history would be fighting against the strongest Silver King for the supreme crown. Jiang Zhishe squinted and shouted loudly, "Silver King! Chen Tiannan! Enter the arena! Chen Tiannan! Enter the arena! Enter the arena!" The echoing shout built upon the crowd's energy and excited their blood, the cries stirred their hearts even further. Chen Tiannan, the silver crown on his head, rose up from the one and only silver throne, an air of superiority and power rose with him in a magnificent wave. "Very good. The fact you got this far is enough for me to go all out on you." Chen Tiannan, the strongest of all the silver, slowly walked over. Chen Feng gazed at his elder brother's back, his eyes filled with respect. Stepping into the arena, Chen Tiannan took off his crown. Jiang Zhishe took back the crown, and announced, "The fight for the Silver King title officially starts now. The winner will be the new Silver King." Chen Tiannan stood with his arms folded and did not attack, he only stared at Su Yu coldly, and calmly said, "Give it a shot. Otherwise, you won't have the chance to show your hand." While it would have sounded cocky coming from someone else, the audience understood it was a legitimate statement coming from the powerful Silver King. Su Yu laughed lightly, "No thanks. The champion today is the Silver King, and the tactics are open and honest. I don't need any tricks." Chen Tiannan's expression was cold and his voice was hoarse and harsh, "You're brave, pity you don't know your strength. How can a firefly fight for brightness against the moon? How powerful did you find Xian Lifei?" Chen Tiannan asked suddenly. Su Yu pondered slightly and gave a fair appraisal. "Very strong. Then let me tell you, a week ago, she challenged me. She was defeated by one move." Chen Tiannan said indifferently. The crowd began to stir into a commotion. Xian Lifei was actually defeated by one move. Whoa, the Silver King is indeed the strongest, so scary. Su Yu's eyes were serious, Chen Tiannan was the strongest opponent he had ever met. But, he would definitely not admit defeat. "You've never fought me though, how do you know how this will end?" Su Yu took a deep breath and shifted into a fighting stance. Chen Tiannan stood with his hands folded and calmly said, "All right, I shall, reluctantly, make the first attack." "Angry King Kong Buddha." Chen Tiannan grunted lowly. His skin glowed with a light bronze color, he looked like a living copper statue. A look of surprise crossed Housemaster Ye's face. "Not bad, a basic level technique like Angry King Kong Buddha has been trained to the top class by Chen Tiannan. His skin and flesh are indestructible, attacks will not easily harm him. Ghost Spirit Technique." Chen Tiannan immediately shouted again, displaying another technique. The fingernails on his two hands slowly turned a nasty and ghostly green color, an eerie gloom seeping from his fingertips. His eyes turned scarlet and his lips began to turn a grayish-green color. From a distance, Chen Tiannan seemed like a demon, ready to battle. Even one look would make your heart turn cold. Housemaster Ye's face was full of shock. Ghost Spirit Technique is a medium-level technique that is close to an advanced-level technique, and he has already trained it to level 2. That's impressive. Su Yu instantly felt a cool breeze, and the thick sense of danger crashed in on him. He was especially wary of those 10 green poison claws. Suyu was sure a brush with those would be incredibly dangerous. Whoosh, Chen Tiannan's one step was 10 feet long, and, 3 steps later, he was nearly on top of Suyu. The eerie demon claws viciously swiped at Suyu's chest, but Suyu was ready. He immediately used the cloud shadow trick, and, like floating duckweed, he narrowly dodged the attack. SSSSSS, Suyu managed to avoid the attack, but a corner of his shirt was touched by a nasty green fingernail. The thick robe made with white cloth started erupting into green pus, a hissing sound seeping from the fabric. Chapter 18. A bar above the rest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Nyo-i.bo Studio Editor. Nyo-i.bo Studio. What strong poison. Suyu's expression wavered, but he did not panic. Instead, Suyu took advantage of the moments between one attack and the next. Universal stroke. Suyu saw his opportunity and grabbed it, swiftly attacking. His fists and legs attacked fluidly, one limb following the other seamlessly. Once a punch was done, a kick came. The attack was extremely powerful and relentless. Chen Tiannan had no choice but to use his arms to guard his chest against the onslaught. Clank. Strangely, however, each time Suyu's fists and feet made contact with Chen Tiannan it felt as though he were attacking solid steel. Chen Tiannan was knocked back half a step with each hit. After 16 consecutive hits he had merely moved back 8 steps and was unharmed. The defense of the angry King Kong Buddha was amazing. It's no use. How can a firefly fight for brightness against the moon? With a cold smile, Chen Tiannan took advantage of the moment Suyu's attack ended, aiming another attack towards Suyu's chest. SSSSS, Suyu dodged, but the front part of his shirt melted. One attack had been ineffective. Suyu's face was serious, but his eyes shined bright. During his attack, after Suyu realized Chen Tiannan's skin was impenetrable, Suyu immediately began searching for other weaknesses in Chen Tiannan's defense. Though he only had a moment to analyze Chen Tiannan during his attack, Suyu still managed to find something strange. When Chen Tiannan used the ghost spirit technique, angry King Kong Buddha paused for a moment and a palm-sized circle of muscle on his chest returned to its normal skin color. To use both techniques simultaneously would require extreme coordination, which Chen Tiannan had apparently not yet mastered. Unfortunately, the small break in Chen Tiannan's defenses was short and rare. It only appeared when Chen Tiannan attacked, making it too dangerous to counter directly. While thinking, Suyu dodged continuously and continued to counter-attack. Chen Tiannan and Suyu danced through time, weaving around each other as they crisscrossed across the arena. They were shadows, fluttering in and out of view. 1 move, 2 moves. 3 moves, 4 moves. Even after 16 moves, they were still evenly matched. Although Chen Tiannan was powerful, Suyu's techniques were not bad. Neither opponent had yet obviously pulled ahead in the fight. Of course, Chen Tiannan firmly held the advantage. A cold smile played beneath Chen Tiannan's eyes. Suyu could defeat Xian Lifei, and he was indeed strong for lasting so long against Chen Tiannan, but his defeat was inevitable. Head Judge Jiang Zhishir was secretly pleased with Suyu's struggle, but his expression was fair as he said, "Suyu, if you only dodge and refuse to fight all 10 rounds, Chen Tiannan will be declared the winner." Oh! The audience felt that was unfair. Suyu had not been defeated, he just had the lower hand. Such a rule was obviously made in order to put more pressure on Suyu. Frowning, Suyu gave Jiang Zhishir a cold look. He had defeated his son, Jiang Fan, so he bore a grudge and was biased against Suyu. As such, Suyu was forced to use his special tactic. Suyu stopped his sequence of dodging and retreating and faced his opponent face-to-face. Finally stopped hiding. Ghost Spirit Technique. Chen Tiannan declared viciously. The nasty green nails left a string of broken lines in the air. Suyu's eyes suddenly changed to a murky crystalline shade. Time and space slowed. Chen Tiannan's every action was slowed down by 300%. The weak spot in Chen Tiannan's chest became obvious and distinct in the drawn-out time. Universal stroke. Su Yu grunted. In other people's eyes, Su Yu's speed was suddenly 3 times faster than usual. Whoosh, 16 consecutive hits were finished in a breath's time. Bang, 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 Chen Tiannan spat out a mouthful of blood as he flew backward. What is going on? How did his opponent's speed suddenly rise to level 4 lower tier? Housemaster Yi was shocked. Chen Tiannan was in disbelief, how could it be? But, the state of his displaced body confirmed the seemingly impossible attack which Su Yu had just pulled off. He was about to lose. A hint of viciousness flashed through Chen Tiannan's cold eyes, even if I do lose. Don't you dare expect an easy victory. Whoosh, a ray of black lights emitted from Chen Tiannan's eyes. It was extremely fast, the audience only saw a blur before the black light enveloped Su Yu's body. Su Yu's whole body vibrated. It felt as though an unknown creature had barged into his brain and was wreaking havoc. Su Yu immediately understood what was happening. It was the legendary technique of the soul. The soul was one of man's weakest points, attacking the soul could cause anything from minor illness to death. Housemaster Ye's face paled. Oh no! It's demonic eyes. With Su Yu's skills, his mind could be permanently damaged, he could end up demented. The more he wanted to help, the further away he felt. An unexpected pain suddenly pierced Su Yu's brain and his vulnerable soul trembled uneasily, the vicious corrosive air was rapidly destroying his brain. Sensing danger closing in, the 9 dragons and the Nine-Dragon Cauldron entrenched within Su Yu's brain vibrated, and a stream of spirit serum spilled out from the small cauldron. The pain in his brain rapidly diminished, and the unknown substance that had seeped into his head was killed by the wind and clouds. To outsiders, Su Yu's body recovered after a mere shake, only he truly knew the danger he had just faced. With a cold look, Su Yu activated the cloud shadow trick and, with one step forward, he caught up to Chen Tiannan, who had flown backward. Su Yu condensed all his power into his fist and punched it hard into Chen Tiannan's head. How is it possible that you are unharmed? Chen Tiannan's face took the hit full on. His lips were smashed, fresh blood was spewing from his mouth and a few of his teeth scattered onto the ground. Su Yu did not stop, he gave a kick toward Chen Tiannan's waist. Crack, it sounded like bones breaking. Filled with anger, Su Yu's fists and legs were attacked consecutively with no breaks in between, he only stopped once he'd hit Chen Tiannan in midair all the way to below the arena. Wah, falling heavily below the arena, Chen Tiannan spat out a mouthful of blood before the immense pain throughout his whole body caused him to pass out. The crowd stared intently as they sucked in a breath of cool air. Not only did Chen Tiannan have multiple broken bones, but his face was also badly beaten, he looked miserable and practically unrecognizable in his heavily injured state. Only once Chen Tiannan landed upon the ground did the anger in Su Yu's eyes start to diminish. If it were not for the Nine-Dragon Cauldron, Su Yu would have become demented. Chen Tiannan was so vicious, how could he show mercy when Chen Tiannan had refused to do the same? Jiang Zhisher's eyes were cloudy and uncertain. The student, whom the Duke wanted dealt with, had become the Silver King. From that day onwards, everything would be different. No. I cannot let him become the Silver King. Jiang Zhisher thought. How brave. Jiang Zhisher gave a cold look and stood up. He leaped onto the arena with one jump. Fueled by anger, he grabbed Su Yu. It is just a comparison test, yet you were so vicious. Stay and kneel. The intense anger suppressed Su Yu, making it difficult for him to retaliate. Jiang Zhisher was a powerful character at level 4 peak, how could Su Yu withstand him? This senior was publicly taking out revenge against Su Yu. Su Yu was a changed person, even though he was not facing the true enemy, he would not submit. Universal stroke. Su Yu would not be suppressed, and so he retaliated. 2 hits. 4 hits. 8 hits. 16 hits. All consecutive hits. You dare to retaliate. The seriousness of your crime only increases with your actions. Jiang Jishi's face was icy as he easily withstood the retaliation. Even after 16 consecutive hits, his body remained unmoved. A powerful palm smacked Su Yu's skull. How was this only a capture? Jiang Jishi was obviously taking advantage of the chance to seriously injure him. It seemed like Su Yu was going to suffer a hit. Whoosh! Suddenly, a wisp of sharp air shot from the VIP seats within the audience. Puff! Jiang Jishi was struck by the stream of air. Even though he was at level 4 peak, he could not withstand that one hit. Jiang Jishi flew several feet, his mouth opened and blood spewed outwards. A bloody hole ripped open on the side of his waist, where he had been struck. What an embarrassment! A cold voice came from the VIP audience seats. Housemaster Ye's long white robe fluttered around him, his black hair flowing, his cold eyes filled with indifference. The students could not tell that Chen Tiannan had used such a dangerous trick like the secret technique of the soul. Could it be that Jiang Jishi had not realized either? It was one thing for Jiang Jishi to stand and watch without blocking, but afterward, he did not investigate Chen Tiannan, and instead only jumped at the chance to hit Su Yu. It was an utter embarrassment. Jiang Jishi was in pain. His mouth was full of blood and his heart was filled with hatred and fear. However, he did not defend himself. He could not air his grievances publicly, as causing a scene in front of such a large audience would deeply injure his reputation. As such, he only clenched his jaw and gave Su Yu a silent glare before swiftly leaving as fast as his injured body would allow. Many students thought it was ridiculous. Su Yu had seriously injured Chen Tiannan in a cruel manner, and Jiang Jishi captured Su Yu out of his duty as the judge, so why was Jiang Jishi injured and punished? Housemaster Yi would not explain the matter. If he announced Jiang Jishi's cowardly actions, it would be a black mark on the institute's reputation. In the fight for the Silver King title, Su Yu is the champion. Housemaster Yi walked onto the stage and personally placed the silver crown on Su Yu's head. Your performance was not bad, continue to work hard. You should aim to join the gold students in a month's time. With a slight smile, Housemaster Yi patted Su Yu's shoulders before he turned to leave. Su Yu's heart was filled with respect. He put his hands together and said, "Thank you, Housemaster." If not for the justice Housemaster Yi had established, Su Yu might not have left the arena in one piece. Su Yu became famous after that fight. The title of Silver King had changed hands from Chen Tiannan to Su Yu. At the moment he was crowned, Su Yu's student number plate shined a bright silver color with just a hint of gold. Soon, it would become a gold number plate. Hidden away, the celestial beauty gazed at Su Yu from a distance. She gave a tranquil smile. A boy with handsome features and a lanky body stood beside her. Handsome enough to make any woman swoon. At the corners of his peach-tinted eyes, however, brewed a glint of darkness. The handsome youth gave an absurd laugh. "Senior Xia, I did not expect you to be interested in a fight between the silvers," he said. His words implied that the silver assessment was very boring. Why would anyone wish to watch it? This impossibly beautiful youth was actually the Gold King, the strongest among the gold students, Fang Qingzhou. His qualifications were amazing, with skills at the level 4 top tier. Even among the gold students, there was no equal to Fang Qingzhou's skill. Not a single person had survived beyond 3 of Fang Qingzhou's attacks. He was undefeatable. He was also a popular bachelor, who was revered by many female students. There were negative rumors regarding Fang Qingzhou, however, which colored him as an unscrupulous playboy who had left many nice girls in extreme emotional distress. Some girls had faced harm as a result of their emotional state. When the girls were hurt by Fang Qingzhou's actions, however, he was never directly punished. The institute settled privately with the family of the victim. The celestial beauty was rather disgusted with Feng Qingzhou, and merely replied, "I just want to see if there are any rising stars." Feng Qingzhou made no attempts to hide his contempt. "No matter how strong a silver is, he is still trash that needs disposing of," he said mockingly. Although his words were harsh, they were true. The silver students were all unqualified, to call them trash was neither uncommon nor uncalled for within the institute. The celestial beauty frowned. "That may not be true, I am optimistic about the new Silver King. He improved very quickly." Once she finished her sentence, the celestial beauty turned to leave. "He." Did she mean Suyu? Feng Qingzhou glanced at Suyu's back and frowned, shaking his head as he scoffed, "That's it, he's peaked. He will be in the lower levels for the rest of his life." As he muttered, he hurried and caught up with the celestial beauty. He watched her graceful shadow with a wicked look. Chapter 19. Planting Traps. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Nyo-i.bo Studio Editor. Nyo-i.bo Studio. Senior Xia, there's going to be a full moon in 2 weeks, are you going to the ancient ruins? Feng Qingzhou fell half a step behind Xia as he greedily breathed in the beautiful woman's fragrance. That ancient ruins were in the Twilight Mountains. Feng Qingzhou had once stalked and pestered the celestial beauty until she went hunting with him, and together they had discovered the ruins in a secret location, thus, the location became a shared secret between the two of them. Yes, after the Golden Assessment, the Institute's 10 great demon students will head to the imperial capital as representatives. Before leaving, I wish to study the mural at the ruins again. She replied. "All right, I'll join you," Feng Qingzhou said, his eyes flashed wickedly. The celestial beauty raised her brows slightly, and nodded, "All right then." After all, the ruins had been discovered by the both of them together. If he requested to come along, it was understandable. Also, Feng Qingzhou was powerful and intimidating, she did not have the strength or prestige required to decline him. A lewd Feng Qingzhou watched the graceful shadow of the celestial beauty move away. With excitement building up in him, he licked his lips, she would be his, regardless of her intended future or feelings. That night, as Suyu dragged his tired body to his dorm, inside, he found multiple institute managers tidying his things. Wusong was standing by the side courteously, he barely dared to breathe. "What's this?" Suyu asked. The leader was a level 4 middle-aged lady, her face indifferent. Looking back at Suyu, she stopped working and her apathetic expression turned into a warm smile. "You are the Silver King, naturally, you shall have a better dorm." It turned out that all the past generations of Silver Kings had their own single courtyard, right beside the courtyards of 100 gold students. Not only was the environment clean, but the peaceful atmosphere was well suited for training. Moreover, any necessities were all specially provided by servants. Among the Silver students, only the Silver King got such special treatment. Wusong breathed in a mouthful of cool air, his expression mixed. Once upon a time, Suyu was just a punching bag, a piece of useless trash. But now he had shot to the sky and become the Silver King, who was above thousands of people. If I had only known Suyu was destined to be the Silver King, I would have developed a bond with him, but now. Under Wusong's envy and jealousy, along with the other respectful eyes that peeked out from the corridors and bedrooms, Suyu left for his new home. Suyu was extremely pleased with the clean courtyard, he had 3 female servants to serve just him and quiet privacy away from people. He did not have to go to the mountains to train anymore, the courtyard would suffice. Power makes all the difference for how you're treated, I suppose. This is worlds away from how I was treated when I was considered weak, Suyu said quietly. Dismissing the servants, Suyu immediately began to treat his body and took the time to recenter himself. The sun was bright in the courtyard the next morning. Fists and legs attacked, one after another. 4 hits. 8 hits. 16 hits. 17 hits. 18 hits. 19 hits. After recovering, Suyu was surprised to discover that, after yesterday's battles, Universal Stroke had been greatly sharpened. Also, the stagnant Universal Stroke had been sharpened to the stage of top class. Now, Suyu could keep attacking consecutively without stopping, an infinite consecutive attack. The improvement in Universal Stroke was assuredly due to all the battle experience Suyu had gained the day before when he used Universal Stroke multiple times. More importantly, however, were the consequences of Jiang Zhisher's immense suppression. Universal Stroke had, as a result, sharpened immensely. Haha. If that old hack knew that I owed it to him for breaking into Universal Stroke's top class, I'm sure he wouldn't be too pleased. At the same time, Suyu also accidentally discovered that within his brain an engraved 10-inch long purple dragon had been washed by the spirit serum of the Nine-Dragon Cauldron. As a result, an inch of the purple dragon had turned to crystal, which was very similar in color to that of Suyu's crystalline pupils. Inspired, Suyu activated his pupils. After a moment, he grinned. His eyesight had improved yet again. Before, he could see tiny things that were over 600 feet away, now, he could discover a mosquito's leg 1,600 feet away. As long as there was nothing to block his view, Suyu could see every detail within a mile. Such eyesight was almost unbelievable. What made him even happier was that, after activation, his time-warping power had doubled. Before, in quiet conditions, when 1 hour passed in the outside world 10 hours would pass for him. Now, when 1 hour passed in the outside world, 20 would pass for him. Under agitated conditions, like battle conditions, his time had formerly been tripled. Now, it was quadrupled. When I meet Chen Tiannan again, I'm sure I'll beat him, just by using Universal Stroke. Suyu clenched his fists. Knock knock, brother Suyu, sister has come to find you. Xian Lifei was outside the courtyard. Her sweet face eyed the Silver King's courtyard with envy. Suyu was rather surprised. Why was Xian Lifei looking for him? What's the matter? Suyu stood at the courtyard gate with no intention of letting her in. Xian Lifei pursed her lips, petty. I came to find you because I wanted to go to the Twilight Mountains, where we can hunt and kill demonic beasts together. Hunt and kill demonic beasts. Suyu was intrigued. With the few taels of silver given as an allowance to students, it was difficult to purchase the training materials he required. Depending on just the few taels of silver distributed to students, it was hard to purchase enough training materials. Come on in, Suyu invited her in. Let's go talk in your room. I have top secret information, Xian Lifei said, her voice low. A ray of bright light flashed through Suyu's eyes. A while later, they sat in Suyu's room. The room was simple but very clean. It was quiet and peaceful, and the clear windows were bright. Xian Lifei took a deep breath longingly, and did not hide her envy as she said, I really hope to achieve this someday. As she spoke, she sat down on the bed. Spill it, what top secret information? Xian Lifei lay back onto the bed. Lying horizontally, her exquisite curves were exposed. Her petite body had really developed quite well. Xian Lifei sat up, and with a mysterious look, she lowered her voice and said, I heard that in the Twilight Mountains, someone found 2 Category 1 demonic beasts. They are guarding a cavern with many precious spiritual things inside, which all the golden students are after. Oh. 2 Category 1 demonic beasts. Suyu was slightly moved. Demonic beasts were rather intelligent, and the things they guarded were usually treasures. Even the silver students were interested, these treasures were surely worth a lot. Besides me, who else have you invited? Suyu asked. With just the 2 of them, they could not take on 1 Category 1 demonic beast, let alone 2. Crash, ah. What are you all doing? This is the Silver King's courtyard. There was a commotion below, a woman screamed that someone had broken in. Make way. We got a report that Su Yu is taking advantage of a female student. Su Yu paled, and he turned his face away. Xian Lifei arranged her face and swiftly removing her top. At the same time, she ruffled the fabric to make it look rumpled. Next, she took out some chili powder and rubbed it in her eyes. Tears rolled out as she laid on the bed. She looked as though she had been violated. How could Su Yu not understand? He had been framed. Whoosh, Su Yu took big steps over, his hands clasped onto Xian Lifei's shoulder. Xian Lifei resisted with a cool face. Bang bang, the sounds of people urgently coming up the stairs came from the floor below. There was no time to spare. Once they barged in and saw the scene, he would not be able to explain. Universal stroke. Su Yu displayed his full power. This was an emergency. Xian Lifei sneered, I am prepared. In an instant, she had silver armor between her eyes, allowing her to withstand her opponent's consecutive hits. 4 hits. 8 hits. 16 hits. 30.2 hits. 60.4 hits. Xian Lifei's sneer froze and beads of sweat dotted her forehead. Her sweet face was bright red and pained. What is going on? Doesn't he only have 16 consecutive hits? Why does it seem like he's hitting me much more than just 16 times? It feels infinite. It was easy to imagine the damage that 16 consecutive hits, executed within a breath's moment, could inflict. Even dripping water could wear away a rock with time. Imagine, then, what legs and hands were capable of. Crack dot, the armor completely shattered. With a cry, Xian Lifei flew back and crashed into the bed's headboard. Her blood boiled and her head spun. At that moment, Su Yu came over in a flash, picked Xian's displaced shirt and swiftly twisted it into a hemp rope. Next, he speedily tied Xian Lifei up and dangled her from the window. Before leaving, he picked up a piece of dirty cloth and stuffed it into Xian Lifei's mouth. The courtyard was in a quiet location. Without standing under the window, it would be hard to realize that a girl was hanging from it. Crash, in that instant, the door was kicked down and a line of people entered. The leader was Jiang Zhisher, whose injuries were not yet healed. Search. Jiang Zhisher looked around coldly, a murderous look in his eyes. The people behind him had already started searching everywhere without waiting for his instructions. Below the bed, in the cupboards, in the luggage, they searched everywhere, but nothing significant turned up. They looked at each other and quietly waited for Jiang Zhisher to speak. What are you all doing? Su Yu's face was cold as he scolded them. Jiang Zhisher stared at him. We received a tip off that you were violating a girl from the institute. Where did you hide her? He asked viciously. Haha. Su Yu turned his anger into laughter. All right. All right. Oh Jiang Zhisher, if you want to point out my crimes, just do it. But you slandering me for violating female students without proof, I will not take it lightly. You all can search all you want. Search all you want. If you don't find proof, I will immediately head to Housemaster Yi and ask him to give his judgment on this event. The people within the room were instantly stunned. They had come to the search with the utmost confidence, sure they would conquer Su Yu, but, in the end, they could not find any abused girl and were forced into a passive position. If Housemaster Yi were really alerted to this incident and found out that they had purposely framed a student, no one would be able to save them from his ruthlessness. Jiang Zhisher also realized the tricky nature of his current situation. He already had a record, and if he were to be caught by Housemaster Yi again, he might not make it out with only minor injuries. Xian Lifei had failed to uphold her part in the plan, it was her fault he was now forced into passivity. Since this must be only a misunderstanding, we shall be leaving. Jiang Zhisher's face was cold as he turned to leave. Hold it. Su Yu shouted coldly, you all barged into my courtyard, you think you can come and go as you please. I have to report this incident to Housemaster Yi and ask him to serve justice. Jiang Zhisher's eyes were cold as he turned around, so what do you want? He asked. They were all smart enough people. Did Jiang Zhishe, the wise old man, not detect Su Yu's intention to extort some benefits out of this situation? It's not what I want, but what you want. Su Yu said angrily, you all destroyed my clean reputation, what should you do? Jiang Zhishe silently hated him. Not only did he not hold the upper hand over his rival, but he had fallen into the passive position. Jiang Zhishe waved his hand and dismissed his men, throwing out a token with a phrase engraved on it. Order of Unlimitedness. Something you can't buy. You should be satisfied. The Order of Unlimitedness. Su Yu raised his eyebrows. The item came from the depository of Buddhist scriptures, and there were only 10 tokens in total. According to the rules of the depository of Buddhist scriptures, one could only enter the depository once every 6 months. But, with the Order of Unlimitedness, one could ignore the rule. Moreover, the holder of the token could enter more than just the first level. They had access to the second level as well, which only gold students qualified for, and the third level, which only demon students qualified for. This token was awarded to people in the high levels of the institute. Unless someone had a direct relationship with a token holder, students did not have the chance to touch one. The item was incredibly precious. Jiang Zhishe also had no choice. He had tried to frame Su Yu, and if Housemaster Yi found out about it he would be in deep trouble. So, he used the ultimate bribe to pay off Su Yu and ensure his silence regarding the incident. Since it is a misunderstanding, then I shall leave it as such. I just hope that next time Jiang Zhishe will think before he acts. Su Yu said meaningfully. He put the matter to rest. With the token, he had sufficiently benefited from the situation. With a cold face, Jiang Zhishe left in a huff. Su Yu waited for the group of people to be completely gone before he went to the window and pulled up Xian Lifei, who had been dangling in the air, and threw her on the floor. Terrified, Xian Lifei's face was as pale as paper. She kneeled on the floor as her thin body quivered. Chapter 20. Tempest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Nyo-i.bo Studio Editor. Nyo-i.bo Studio. I'm sorry, I was forced. Xian Lifei's eyes were filled with tears, like a wronged lamb. How could Su Yu believe her biased words? He searched her clothes and belongings. A wooden box among her things caught his attention. Top-grade spirit elixir. Su Yu opened it up in shock, his eyes narrowing as he realized what had been inside. How could Xian Lifei, with her family background, have obtained such a precious elixir? Tell me, before my anger gets the best of me, tell me the truth. Su Yu walked towards Xian Lifei slowly. Xian Lifei blinked fearfully. She was short of breath, her anxiety evident in the great rises and deep falls of her chest. It's Qin Feng, he made me do it, I'm sorry. It was Qin Feng after all. Had he collaborated with Jiang Zhishe? Qin Feng, the second among the gold students, was at level 4 lower tier. His power was terrifying. It was him who had stolen Su Yu's childhood love. It was him who viciously framed Su Yu, again and again. Qin Feng. If I don't seek revenge, Su Yu, am not truly a man. Su Yu clenched his fists tightly. Xian Lifei curled deeper into the bed like a little lamb. Can you let me go? I won't dare to do it again, she said quietly. Su Yu looked towards her, his eyes cold and distant. Finally, he waved his hand and signaled for her to leave. Remember, don't do this again. Both Su Yu and Xian Lifei existed at the bottom levels of society, and so Su Yu empathized with Xian Lifei's hardships. Since this scheme to frame him had turned out to be a blessing in disguise, he saw no reason to not show Xian Lifei mercy. Having been released, Xian Lifei, greatly relieved, hurriedly fixed her clothes before slipping out fearfully. Oh, hey, by the way, is it true about the demonic beasts on the Twilight Mountains? Are they really guarding treasure? Su Yu asked. Hearing Su Yu call out to her, Xian Leafei's petite body froze and she turned back tearfully. She nodded her head, lightly, like a chick pecking rice, and said, "Yes, it is true. This is the map." She quickly dropped the map before making her escape, out and away from the Silver King. Only when she was far enough away from him did she start to cry. She felt wronged and humiliated. "Oh, did I wish I were anywhere but here. He took my spirit elixir, and even my body was exposed, all for nothing." She thought about how many playboys she had interacted with, how none of them had taken advantage of her, how she had been able to protect herself. Until Su Yu, who had trapped her so easily. She sobbed uncontrollably. Worst of all, Su Yu didn't even seem genuinely interested in her. Of course, the most important matter was the spirit elixir. She had planned on using it after she completed the task, just in case she failed and had to return the spirit elixir to Qin Feng. But now, she had not completed the task and had lost the elixir. She did not know how to explain herself to Qin Feng. Su Yu sat cross-legged in the courtyard and looked at the top-grade spirit elixir with a smile on his face. The strong power it contained was much higher than that of the middle-grade elixir, and the low-grade was barely worth mentioning in relation to the top-grade elixir he now held in his hands. Su Yu adjusted his position until he was comfortable, and promptly swallowed the elixir. Its strong power spread through his limbs like wildfire. Quickly, Su Yu started sweating profusely all over his body. Sweat drops trickled out from his nostrils. He was absolutely drenched. 2 hours later, he awoke. Su Yu's eyes flicked open, beams of light shot from his pupils. He clenched his fists and a strong sense of power spread throughout his veins. He felt as though his whole body was full of strength. He felt like he could kill a large bull with one punch. Is this what level 3 feels like? It is not too different than what I've felt before, Su Yu exclaimed excitedly. He realized that he could now defeat a powerful level 3 student like Chen Tiannan, all thanks to the strength of Universal Stroke, a low-level technique. Su Yu was so close to so much power. However, Su Yu did not feel satisfied with himself. He needed to be stronger. From now on, my opponents will only get stronger. There is no way I can just depend on Universal Stroke. Su Yu instantly took out the Order of Unlimitedness, his lips curling into a smile. Jiang Zhishi, this whole so-called trap really worked out well for me, didn't it? Half a day later, though it had only been a month since his last visit, Su Yu was at the depository of Buddhist scriptures again. As per usual, the old man guarding the place was sitting on the staircase, his expression indifferent. Seeing Su Yu approach, he coldly stated, "Within half a year, you can only enter once." The old man's face was unpleasant as he muttered, "I have previously told you that Cloud Shadow is hard to train, not even 1 out of 1,000 people succeed. I warned you that you would not succeed. Now, you return in defeat. Now, you want to change your technique. Well, too late." Awkwardly, Su Yu held up his hand, "I know, but I have the Order of Unlimitedness." Su Yu handed over the coin and the old man's cheeks moved slightly. He stared at Su Yu intently for a moment. How had this boy, a silver-ranked student, received the Order of Unlimitedness? It was curious indeed, but it was not his place to investigate. Instead, the old man merely asked another question. "How is your Cloud Shadow training progressing?" He had hoped Su Yu had quit, as he had previously pegged Su Yu as an overachiever who failed to actually achieve. Su Yu blushed slightly. "Cloud Shadow is hard to master. I have only trained to stage 1 top class," he said quietly. On average, a student with Su Yu's qualifications would take at least 6 months to reach his current level with Cloud Shadow. However, due to his time-cheating abilities, he had been able to reach his current stage. The old man's face suddenly changed, his pupils shrank as he asked, "Just half a month and you have trained to stage 1 top class? Unbelievable." Suspicious, the old man glared. "Prove it. If you are lying to me, you know the consequences," the old man said coldly. It was hard for him to believe that among the silver students, someone could successfully train this obscure, light-body cultivation technique. For this technique, even the highly skilled would find it hard to get started without at least a full month of training, but Su Yu had somehow managed to train to level 1 top class within 2 weeks. Of course, the old man did not know Su Yu had a time-cheat technique, which allowed him to train 10 times faster than other students. Now, after increasing his time-cheat power, he could increase the speed to 20 times faster than usual. His training speed would be even faster than before. Su Yu, after the old man challenged him, promptly displayed the light-body cultivation technique. His light body was like the cloud's shadow, light and fluid, like floating duckweed. He was elegance and agility combined, never once slowing down. The one man's face was one of shock. Realizing he had forgotten himself, he quickly converted his shocked expression and stepped clear of the staircase, speaking with his usual cold tone. You have the right to enter the 2nd and 3rd levels, but you can only take away 1 skill. That rule remains the same. Okay. Su Yu flew past the old man in a flash. Su Yu had seen all the skills on the 1st level before, there was nothing left which caught his eye. Only the 2nd and 3rd levels had the skills he needed. At the entrance of the 2nd level there was a stone sign. Level 2, 49 Assault Cultivation Techniques, 490 Assisting Techniques. Su Yu clicked his tongue. Level 1 had 101 Assault Cultivation Techniques and 491 Assisting Techniques, Level 2 had less than half of the number of techniques available on Level 1. Of course, the techniques in Level 2 were all medium level, and the attacks on Level 1 couldn't even compare. With fewer techniques, Su Yu was more serious in choosing his selection. A long while later. Medium level technique, Tempest. Su Yu's eyes lit up. After successfully training this technique, there will be cold wind generated between leg techniques. After training Tempest to completion, the cold wind will solidify water vapor into ice, and there will be wind and snow generated between kicks. This is the top tier of the medium-level techniques, its strength is comparable to top-level techniques. This technique's basic requirement is a strong foundation in leg techniques, a core requirement is strong comprehension skills. To those who choose to attempt this technique, please be careful. If you do not have the determination found in only 1.in.a million, do not waste your time. Su Yu flipped open the book, and his vision instantly swam with the amount of information packed onto one page. The words written within were not only choppy but hard to pronounce. Cloud Shadow's technique was considered hard to comprehend, but compared to this book, it was nothing. Su Yu looked at the book for 10 minutes and did not understand a single sentence. Su Yu was not discouraged, however, and was instead more motivated than ever. The harder it was to comprehend a technique, the more powerful it was. It also meant there were not many other trainees, and it would be difficult for his opponents to counter the move. Su Yu activated his time control, time sped up 20 times faster than normal. To outsiders, Su Yu only looked at the book for half an hour, but he actually spent a total of 10 hours memorizing it. In actual fact, he had already spent 10 hours memorizing it. After that, Su Yu continued reviewing the techniques available. Ghost Spirit Technique, Medium Level Technique. Su Yu discovered the technique which Chen Tiannan was training. He took one look at the text before setting it down. Although the technique was powerful, it required a foundation in poisons, which he did not have. Oh! Demonic eyes! What's this? When he had browsed up to the last assault cultivation technique, a black dot-covered gloomy book grabbed his attention. Demonic eyes, medium-level technique. After training, it can attack the soul. The lower tier can cause the victim to be dizzy, and the upper tier can cause death. It is extremely dangerous. The only basic requirement is to be gifted in soul energy. This technique is extremely powerful. Because it involves the soul, there are great risks involved in training, as the soul could easily retaliate. For those gifted in soul energy, please select carefully. For those not gifted in soul energy, there is a 90% chance of death. Suyu clicked his tongue. Demonic eyes had unique requirements. Am I gifted in soul energy? Flipping open to the top page, there was a small line of words. To check if you are gifted in soul energy, you can refer to the first 10 words on the first page of this technique book. The words hold a weak soul attack. If you can read the first word clearly, it means you are weakly gifted in soul energy. If you can read the second word clearly, you are average. Third word, above average. Fourth word, rather strong. Suyu flipped past the page and saw the introduction to the technique had 10 rather weird looking words. They were blurry, the letters swimming across the page as if they were alive, which made it difficult for Suyu to read them clearly. Even so, strangely, Suyu could distinctly read the first 7 words. According to the previous passage, his ability to see 7 words clearly meant he had a terrifying gift in soul energy. Suyu blinked in disbelief. His body was entirely mediocre physique, mediocre perception. He was only capable of his current strength due to the Nine-Dragon Cauldron. To suddenly discover his terrifying gift in soul energy was difficult for Suyu to process. After Suyu took a moment to sit in shock, he came to an understanding. It must be the result of the combination of the souls of the two Suyes, thus, my soul is twice as powerful as others my age. Suyu rejoiced. He immediately memorized demonic eyes. After that, of the 490 available assisting techniques, Suyu saw nothing that interested him. I wonder what level 3 is like. Maybe it's all top-level techniques. Looking upwards, Suyu leapt to level 3. Level 3 was only open to the Institute's 10 great demon students. Every technique kept there was nothing less than incredible.